to the Beach Bum Bookworm. I am Tiffany. I'm so glad y'all found me again today. My channel is all about cozy mysteries and romance books, and today I'm doing my April wrap-up. Now, I know it's a little late for our April wrap-up, but there's just been a lot going on. I've been sick, I've been out of town, so here we are. Just the way it is sometimes. I didn't read as much because of the things that I just mentioned. They're, of course, all cozies. Let's get into it. But first, I want to know what cozies you read, what were your favorite reads of the month, and anything else that you want to talk about down in the comments is the place to do it. On your way down to comment, don't forget to stop and hit the subscription and the notification bell. Notification bell is going to tell you when I put out videos each and every single week so you don't miss anything. And the subscription keeps my channel growing. All right, let's get to it. We're looking at my April 2022 wrap up in 3, 2, 1, go! The first book I read was Caught Dead-Handed. This is the first book in the Witch City Mystery series by Carol J. Perry. I loved this first book. I'm not a big paranormal fan. Y'all know this. If you've been around my channel for a while, you know I like to skirt on the outside of it, so I didn't know how I'd feel going in. I loved it. So our main character, Lee, she goes back home to Salem, Massachusetts, which is a really cool place for a cozy, and she is interviewing at the Witch TV. It's like you know how like TV stations have like their little abbreviations? It is spelled W-I-C-H, so like Witch TV. It's kind of funny. Thought that was really clever. All right. So she is interviewing for a job at this TV station, and the only job opening is for this call-in psychic who does like late night movies on like the weekends, and then like late night scary movies on the weekends, and then takes like call-ins because she's a psychic, but she's murdered and didn't like see her own death coming. So that should tell you something, right? It was so good. I absolutely loved it. I gave it let's say 4 cups of coffee. I said 3.5 as I was writing it down, but I really think I probably rated it 4 cups of coffee on Goodreads. I really, really enjoyed it. Next up, I read A Skeleton in the Family. This is the first book in the Family Skeleton Mystery series by Lee Perry. I gave it 3 cups of coffee. I will definitely continue. So our main character in this one is Georgia. She is a adjunct professor, so she's constantly kind of moving from university to university to find teaching jobs. But her family has their family home that she's kind of staying at during this book, and they have a family skeleton. That's literally a skeleton. It's Sid. Sid talks. But he's a skeleton. He doesn't know his backstory, and they don't know his backstory. They found him in, I believe, like in a trunk, and he's just been with the family for like 30 years. So he kind of wants to know like who he was. He doesn't know any of that information. So they find a lead to a lady professor on the campus, which leads them to find out about his backstory. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I gave it 3 cups of coffee. I will definitely continue on. Can't wait to see what happens next. So the next book was highly anticipated. It did not let me down. It was one of my favorites of the month. Antique Auctions or Murder. This is number 7 in the Poppy McAllister series by Libby Klein. 5 huge cups of coffee, as always, because I absolutely love this series. So in this, Poppy and Jenny are going to, her aunt, Jenny, are going to this antique show, and there's a feud between 2 sellers there. So there's multiple sellers at this. It's like a convention type of thing, and one of the sellers is claiming that one of the items at the other seller's booth was stolen from their shop. So they're kind of feuding back and forth, and Jenny and Poppy just want to stay out of it. They go to take part in the auction, and there's an armoire being sold, and the armoire, when it's opened, has a dead body fall out, and it's one of them that was arguing, and of course the story goes from there. Absolutely love this series. Hope it goes on for a very long time. It's so much fun. The next book I read was Game of Cones. This is the second book in the Ice Cream Parlor Mystery series by Abby Collette. I ended up giving this 4 cups of coffee. So in this one, our main character, her real name is like Browen. She goes by Wynn. She is the manager of her family's ice cream shop. So this takes place in somewhere in Ohio. It's got a really cute name. I think I wrote it down, Chagrin Falls, Ohio. I don't know if I had read many cozies that take place in Ohio, maybe a few Amish cozies, I guess, if I looked into it. But I'm going to make sure that this doesn't fit into my road map of the states, or the road trip. You know what I mean, for our cozy road trip. Okay, anyways. So in this one, there's a developer that comes into town and he's talking about building a high rise in the middle of this little historic town's village. And shockingly, people aren't happy about that. Even more shockingly, he ends up dead. And Wynn is going to figure out what is going on. 4 cups of coffee. I loved it. I can't wait to see what happens next. Next up, I read Dying Wishes right here. This is book 2 in the Haunted Yarn Shop by Molly McRae. So this series takes place in Blue Plum, Tennessee. It's at the foot of Blue Ridge Mountains. It just sounds absolutely beautiful. So Kath, our main character, took over her grandmother's. Sometimes it's grandmother, sometimes it's aunts. Hard to keep track of in the cozies because it's usually one or the other. And this one, it's a grandmother. She takes over her grandmother's art supply. It's like fiber art, wool, any kind of fibers like that, called the Weaver's Cat. She's kind of settling into this. She and other members of their TGIF, which stands for, thank goodness it's fiber. Ha, you thought Friday. Thank goodness it's fiber. Their group goes to this farm that has sheep, and the person is a member of TGIF, Debbie. She's going to show them how to dye these fibers. And Kath and Debbie go walking down towards somewhere else on the property from the rest of the members, and the sheep are kind of acting funny, or they've gotten out or something like that. And then they realize that there's 2 dead bodies that the sheep are gathering around. Not 1, but 2. So at first people think it's a murder-suicide. To add insult to injury, one of the people that are dead, the girl that is dead, is one of the TGIF's members' daughter. So there's a lot going on here. I absolutely love this series. I love the shop. I love the members of TGIF. I even love the ghost part of it. It's just, I love everything about this series. I gave it 4 cups of coffee, but as I'm sitting here talking about, it's probably really more close to 4.5. It's just so much fun. Next up is Candy Slain Murder. This is the 8th book in the Country Store series by Maddie Day. So in this one, our main character is, of course, Robbie Jordan. She owns Pans and Pancakes. This series takes place, and I believe it's South Lick, Indiana. And this one, it's during Christmas season, which is kind of cool. I love holiday cozies. I read this for our scavenger hunt pick, but it's just so much fun. I can read a holiday cozy any time of year. It is fine by me. So there's a fire at somebody's house, and remains of a skeleton are found. It is the doctor's house, and the doctor's wife supposedly left years ago. He says he has no idea how she got into, the attic and blah, 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 blah. And so Robbie's just trying to piece it all together. There is kind of another mystery going on in this one, which I kind of thought was really fun. Somebody comes into town and claims that, they're a sibling to somebody who didn't know about them, and they're trying to figure out what is going on with that. It's one of Robbie's employees. I really liked this. I gave it 3 to 3.5 cups of coffee, which is normally kind of what I give this series. I think this is a great, solid read. Another one of my favorites of the month. This series is fast becoming one of my favorites. It's the Jaine Austen mystery series. I read book number 5, The PMS Murders. I gave it 5 huge cups of coffee. This is by Laura Levine. So in this one, our main character, Jane, of course, she is a writer for hire, and she is asked to join this women's group that she meets this girl. This girl says, hey, I belong to this women's support group. They call themselves the PMS Sisters or PMS Club. And so Jane's like, sure. She goes to the first meeting, and she kind of sees the dynamics between the group. And one of the ladies in the group is having an affair with one of the other ladies' husbands. Of course, she ends up dead. It's by like poisoning or maybe an allergic reaction, but something to do with the food. And turns out there's all sorts of people that might not be happy with her, as always. And you get everything that you want in a Jaine Austen cozy mystery. As you know, you get Prozac's antics, you get oh gosh, I love everything about this series. The humor is just right up my alley. Absolutely love it. Next up, I read Tales You Lose, which is number 2 in the Witch City Mysteries by Carol J. Perry. I loved the first one so much, I needed to move on to the second one. Unfortunately, I didn't love this one as much. This was a personal preference. There was nothing wrong with the writing. There was, nothing like that. It just got way too paranormal for me. If you're into paranormal, you will absolutely love this series. I love the premise. I love everything about it. This one got a little off the rails for me. So there you go. Next up, I read Some Like It Hawk. This is the 14th book in the Meg Langslow series. This is by Donna Andrews. I absolutely love this book. I absolutely love this series. So in this one, the town is in an uproar. It's in chaos because the mayor in town was doing some shady dealings, and he ends up getting all these people kicked out of their businesses that the town owns. So like the water company and people in the courthouse and those kind of governmental buildings, because he used the buildings as collateral to pay off debts and then stole that money and ran off, it sounds like. So in the midst of everybody kind of being in an uproar, there's one citizen that has barricaded himself in the courthouse basement. Now, some people are trying to get him out. A lot of the townspeople are helping him stay. They've got a tunnel that they bring food and all the supplies that he would need. Unfortunately, somebody else ends up dead in the courthouse, which complicates the whole situation. And Meg is going to figure out what is going on. Loved it. 4.5, big, huge cups of coffee. Can't wait to read the next one. This is on my SAS list, so I'll definitely be getting to it soon. Next up, I read Death in D Minor. This is the second book in the Guess of Maine Brown series by Alexia Gordon. And this one I gave 3 cups of coffee. I felt like I really love this series because I really love the premise. So our main character is a concert violinist, but she has taken this job teaching classical music and orchestra at a boys' school, which I absolutely love. I think is a great premise for a book. Have the classical music, and I think it's fun that she's teaching. I just love everything about that. But this particular book had a lot going on, and I was a little confused and hard to follow. And for a cozy, that's kind of crazy for that to happen. It just had too many moving parts for me. I'll definitely be continuing with the series. Again, I gave it 3 cups of coffee. Next up, I read Bookman Dead Style. This is the second book in the Dangerous Type series by Paige Shelton, which was a series read-along for us. We did not get to discuss it because it was, I think, on the week that I was sick, unfortunately. So I really liked this one. In this series, our main character, she works at they restore typewriters and like rare books and old books. The first one I thought was a little like, I really enjoyed this second one. I thought it got better. I thought it was fun with, of course they're having a film, in this one they're having a film festival. So it brings in like people who are supposed to be like actors and like famous. And I thought that was a really fun aspect. It takes place in Utah, which is a fun location for a cozy for me because of course it's more of a maybe cold weather than a lot of the other cozies that you normally see. So I really, really liked it and can't wait to read the next one. I don't want to give too much away in case we still talk about this one during the next read, which is Comic Sans Murder number 3. It'll be coming up this month to finish out this series. I gave this 4 cups of coffee. Again, don't want to give too much away, so I don't want to say too much. Let's move on. Next up, I read Murder Simply Brewed. This is the first book in the Amish Village mystery series by Vanetta Chapman. I read this for Amish in April. I absolutely loved it. I gave it 4 very large cups of coffee. So I thought this was such a good premise. So our main character, Amber, she is the manager of an Amish village artisan shop area. So it's kind of like a strip mall, but like all Amish kind of goods and services. I think that sounds amazing. This takes place in Middlebury, Indiana. And this one of the shop managers, which is a coffee shop manager, ends up dead. The windows are shot out with a BB gun. And so people are like, BB gun wouldn't have killed him. Alas, though, he is dead. So people think that the BB guns caused a heart attack, but our main character, Amber, does not think that. And she is decided to sleuth. Absolutely loved it. It was so much fun, and I was really excited to read the second one, which I did, and I will talk about in a minute. Next up, I read Jaine Darrowfield and the Mad Woman Next Door. This is number 2 of the Jaine Darrowfield by Barbara Ross. I loved the first one. I did not love this one. I definitely will continue on with the series because the reason I did not love this was not the writing or anything else. It was the plot. So I just felt like this got a little too non-cozy, and so it hit a little too close to home in my profession. So the main character, Jaine Darrowfield, she is hired to by a new client. She's a professional busybody. Basically, she just kind of handles and helps people with problems. She's hired by her neighbor named Megan, and Megan is hearing voices, and she's having blackouts and doesn't remember things, and she doesn't know if she's going crazy or people are doing things to make her feel crazy. And I tend to not want to read anything like that. It wasn't enjoyable to me. I just don't want that in my cozies. Again, nothing else wrong with this book. I will definitely continue it. That's all I have to say about it, because I don't feel like I read it in the true sense of just reading to enjoy. Next up, I read Murder Tightly Knit. This is the second book in the Amish Village series by Vanetta Chapman. I read this again for Amish in April because we were going to discuss it for the April 30th live show on Sarah from the Bookish Knitter, who was one of the amazing co-hosts of Amish in April. All right, so I did not love this one. Gosh, it seems like a lot of the follow-ups to books that I really loved, I didn't really love, which is very frustrating. So again, this is by Vanetta Chapman. We're back at the Amish Village artisan shop. Amber is back in the picture. Amber is now married to Tate, who we met in the first book. And there is a death of an Amish man with a crossbow. And one of the things that I'll say that I really didn't like about this is this series has multiple points of view, which I kind of like. You don't get that in cozies very often. But what I didn't like in this particular book is that one of the POVs was from the murderer, and I just think that makes it too creepy. Like, that's more of to me, that's more for like a thriller or, something more like that. I just think that is too non-cozy to have the murderer give like their usually irrational thoughts, right? Like, it's not usually their justifications aren't really what we would consider a justification for murder. So it just sounds creepy. And so it just wasn't my cup of tea. I will probably definitely move on with this series because, again, I loved the first one so much. Next up was one I did love, 5 cups of coffee, 5 huge cups of coffee. It is another Jaine Austen, Death by Pantyhose. Of course. This is by Laura Levine. It's the 6th book. And this one, Jane is hired to write for a comedian, Dorcas. And Dorcas, like, one of her bits is to throw pantyhose at the audience. It's like one of her jokes, and I don't know, somehow. Anyways. And another comic who is very rude and, just a jerk, ends up dead, strangled with a pair of pantyhose, so you can imagine who the main suspect is, and Jane is going to figure out what is going on because she does not believe that Dorcas is involved. Next up and last for the month is On Borrowed Time. This is book 5 in the Library Lover series, which I absolutely love. Didn't really love this book, but I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 cups of coffee. It was a good solid read. The plot line for this one was a little too, I don't want to say in depth, like cozies can be in depth, but it just had too much going on for a cozy for me. Like, so her brother, our main character, Lindsay, her brother comes into town and then goes missing. And her brother is like a economist, and he works for some people who were involved in, I guess, some very shady business practices, and there's money being exchanged, and it's kind of like got some spy stuff in it, and you don't know who is good and who is bad. And I just felt like, I don't know, I'm more of a, like, I don't want all that in my cozy. I still love this series. I will definitely continue it. This particular book just wasn't one of my favorites in the series. I still gave it 3 stars because you still had all the characters that I love. You still had the library, everything else there. And I still really, really enjoyed it. So that was my April reading month. Again, let me know what you read. Give me a big fun thumbs up for this video. And until next time, may all your future reads be 5 stars. Bye, everybody.